Okay, I think we're live.
Okay. Can you just make one last look for Sarah if she's managed to get on or not?
She's not connected.
Not connected here. Okay, just give me a second, too.
Is she on her boat?
Yes, we're definitely live. I'm going to go ahead and share this to these other places.
Just one technical thing, Don, are you here?
Yes.
And can you just give Sarah a quick email with a phone number she could try to call to see connect that way? But she's going to keep trying to connect through the.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay.
You might want to go ahead and start then.
Okay.
In the meantime.
All right. Okay. Welcome to the second of two launch readings for the Beltway Poetry Quarterly's Art in Times of Crises issue, Volume 2. And very excited to have you with us. And we're broadcasting live on Facebook in various pages. And we have poets here from all over the world. And thank you for making the effort to be with us today. My name is Indran Amirthanayagam. I'm the editor of the journal. I edit it with Sara Cahill Marron, associate editor, who's will join us shortly when she manages some technical issues. So I'll begin with a poem. I wrote it this morning and for the column I write for IT on Marsh. So I wrote it in French, and then I made a translation into English. It goes like this. Le mariage a été annoncé, et la nouvelle est un soulagement, une brise de l'océan que tu sens pendant ta promenade de l'aube sur la côte où tu te trouves, même si tu es au centre-ville ou au milieu d'un champ de maïs sur la montagne de Kenskoff, ou dans un terrain plat de latibonite. L'annonce t'arrive comme le cri d'une mouette qui indique à ses compagnons ou aux poissons qui les attendent. La vie est à manger comme le mariage et le maïs. Et la mort vient après ou dans le passé. Quelle est notre vie sauf une brise qu'on sent le matin avant que le soleil devienne fort en laissant le corps blanc incinéré sous la terre? Dans un autre poème, le même soleil donnera la vie et va éclater après 50 milliards d'années et un nombre assez grand de générations qui attendent toujours à naître. Le mariage et l'explosion du soleil ont été annoncés, mais quand même, nous devons fêter et prendre soin de nous et dédier nos familles à la science et la recherche de notre système solaire ou notre vie. The marriage has been announced, and the news is a relief, an ocean breeze you feel during your walk at dawn on the coast, where you find yourself even if you are downtown, or in the middle of a cornfield on Kenskoff Mountain, or on a flat plain in the Artibonite. The announcement arrives like the gull's cry, letting his companions know where the fish are waiting for them. Life is to eat, like marriage, like corn, and death comes afterwards or before in the past. What is our life except a breeze one feels in the morning before the sun becomes so strong it leaves the body white, incinerated on the earth. In another poem, the same sun will give life and will explode after 50 billion years, and a rather larger number of generations waiting still to be born. The marriage and the sun's explosion have been announced, but even so, we should feast and take care of ourselves and dedicate our families to science and the search for another solar system, another life. Thank you. And I will now, Sarah, are you on by any chance? Not yet. I will now introduce from New Delhi, from India, the poet Sudeep Sen. Sudeep Sen's prize-winning books include Postmarked India New and Selected Poems, Rain, Ladakh, Ariel, which won the A.K. Ramanujan Translation Award, the HarperCollins Book of English Poetry, which he edited, Fractals, New and Selected Poems, Translations, 1980 to 2015, Eurotext, and many other books. He is a very eminent poet with a long list of, and many years of hard work in the field of poetry. I leave you with Sudeep Sen. Go ahead, Sudeep.
Thank you, Indran, and it's a real treat to be with you all. See such lovely, bright faces. I can see Linda sipping red wine. I'm jealous because it's 1:30 at night. I can only have tea to keep myself awake. Delhi at the moment is extremely toxic and polluted. I mean, the AQI levels are just astonishingly high. So this is a poem both on the pandemic as well as on climate change. And the immediate setting is Delhi, but it could be anywhere else in the world. It's called Disembodied. My body carved from abandoned bricks of a ruined temple, from minaret shards of an old mosque, from slate remnants of a medieval church apse, from soil tilled by my ancestors. My bones don't fit together correctly as they should. The searing ultraviolet light from Aurora Borealis patches and etch corrects my orientation. Magnetic pulses prove potent. My flesh sculpted from the fruits of the tropics, blood from coconut water, skin colored by brown bark of Indian teak. My lungs fueled by Delhi's insidious toxic air, echo asthmatic sounds, a new vinyl dub remix. A universe where radiation germinates from human follies, where contamination persists from mistrust, where pleasures of sex are merely a sport, where everything is ambition, everything is desire, everything is nothing, nothing and everything. White light everywhere, but no one can recognize its hue. No one knows that there is color in it, all possible colors. Body worshipped, not for its blessings, but its contours, artificial shape shaped by Nautilus. Skin moistened by L'Oreal and not by the season's first rains. Skeleton strength not shaped by earthquakes or slow molded by fearless forest fires. Ice caps are rapidly melting, too fast to arrest glacial slide. In the near future, there will be no water left, or too much water that is undrinkable. Excess water that will drown us all. Disembodied floats afloat like Noah's Ark, No GPS, no pole star navigation, no fossil fuel to burn away, just maps with empty grids and names of places that might exist. Already, there is too much traffic on the road. Unpeopled hollow metal shells without brakes swerve about directionless, looking for an elusive compass. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shuddeep.
And the second, thank you very much. That's very kind. Lots of tapping. We are very restrained in this part of the world. This particular poem you'll recognize more because I saw two front pages of the New York Times, and they were astonishing. I'll just show it to you. I've got this sort of, I don't know whether you can see it. The first one is just names of all the people who died in the first wave of the pandemic. The front page was just a list of names. And there was another one, which was the front page was just completely black, obviously as a statement. Amazing sort of imagery, so to speak, for a newspaper. So the poem was partly prompted by these two images, and of course the rest of it is very clear. It's called Obituary, and I take the epigraph is the headline from that one of the newspapers, the one I just showed you, and it's simply, I quote, "They were not simply names on a list, they were us." Death knell peals, numbers multiply, virus ravages us one by one. No amount of hygiene ritual enables our lungs to resuscitate. Newspaper columns loom, unsteady, ghostly apparitions on broadsheets, name, age, date of death, tall epitaphs in fine print. Ink spills, bleeds dark, newsprint blotting out our wheezing breath. Our lives, micro point-sized fonts on an ever-inflating pandemic list. Black specks, fugitive lonely numbers, the deceased on an official roster. Another sick, another dying, another dead. Yes, they were us. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
kind.
Shuddeep. Very good. And now I'd like to introduce John Wall Barger. John Wall Barger's poems and critical writing have appeared in the American Poetry Review, the Kenyon Review, the Hopkins Review, the Alaska Quarterly Review, the Cincinnati Review, Rattle, Poetry Island Review, and the Best of the Best Canadian Poetry. His fourth book, The Mean Game, is currently in its second print run, published by Palimpsest. He lives in Philadelphia, where he teaches a poetry workshop at the University of the Arts. Go ahead, John.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. So thanks very much to Beltway and especially Indran and Sara. I'm going to read two poems. They're about 2 minutes each. The first one is called Distemper Song, and just a very brief context. I lived in the north of India in Dharamsala for 3 years before coming to Philadelphia. And I developed a really strong relationship with the dogs that were there. There were these dog packs that were constantly howling and screaming nearby, but they were some of them anyway, were very friendly, and we fed them and tried to develop a relationship with them, much to the chagrin of some of our neighbors, but we had many helpers as well. So this is from the perspective of a dog in the village of Gamru in the north of India. So distemper song. I fall into the ditch, shivering, a new chill. My mother licking, licking, licking. A bull drifts into our clearing. My brothers throw up a wall of yipping. The bull breaks the wall, slow. The bull a mountain, sniffing me, snorting thunder. My brothers, their several noses, sniffing me where the bull stood. My brothers upon me, dancing, playing, my body a part of their game. In the almost dark moonlight, we sleep all in a mound. The night stitched with great streams of yipping, gushing from the moon, gushing between mountains, ogres of yipping, frenzies of yipping. I lie in the ditch, gray with diesel fumes and yipping. A deer dribbles a blood trail beside us, no yipping. So it was a dream. I'm woken by a human baby yipping. No, it is me crying. I who was the beautiful child in my caramel fur. My brothers sniff me, growl, laugh on the high road amid donkeys. I do not see my brothers again. My mother in the bushes in a pile, egg of the hidden land, grass growing through her leg, a slow song of grass. Wondrous wind, fearsome, many-headed wind, and squirrels dance upon me, and wind, the breath of an animal, but which? The night a tide runs out, but never runs in. I try to walk to my mother as she swirls in the air above me. It is all right. I lick the deathless dew, morning nectar, under the sun, a wheel rolling of itself. The birds sing and dance upon the objects of the land, and the silence sniffs me with a roaring. Okay, that's the first poem. The second poem I want to read is very brief context for this one. My mother uncovered, we lived in New York City when I was a kid. I'm in Philadelphia now. My mother uncovered all of these, I guess there were Super 8 videos from the 1970s and 60s and 50s. And among them was an afternoon of my birthday, my 8th birthday in 1977. So it was very wonderful to see my parents, my hippie parents, you know, who are much, much younger than I am now. You know, my father with his hand on my shoulder and my mother whispering in my ear. So this is from my grandmother's living room in New York City, 1977. So the title is My Birthday One Muggy Saturday in Manhattan, August 1977. Ants and ants and ants in suffocating heat, family guests in robin egg blue suits, old silent movie era hierarchs, and tiny glass figurines dancing on point, an ear of wheat crocheted doilies. In my mother's family's flat, where she grew up, me in my blue coveralls, caged in by the quaint asparagus green French village wallpaper. I want to sink my face in chocolate cake, 2 dark moons. My parents restrain me. They are long hairs, hippies on either side, one hand on each of my shoulders. I lean in, inhaling, boy blowfish. Thing is, my grandparents don't like my dad, my awkward dad, blowing smoke in their faces at dinner, lacking boundaries, giving the wrong signals. The air is full of sounds and Vienna fingers and frail teacups. So the family does not babysit me. This pains my mother, she who glows beside me, almost too much the glowing, in her lovely white hippie pilgrim dress, squeezing my shoulder lightly. Sailing by, a fruit-bearing rat in a robin's egg blue suit. But I dig my dad because he puts his forehead on mine, makes googly eyes. The face of my great-grandmother slow, so slow through the murky water of balloons. Because dad catches my eye across rooms like these, grinning his big grin as if to say, my boy, you are above all these bastards. The family is wary of him, even wary of my mother, she who has not yet learned to be wary of anything. Because he rides me on the tank of his Triumph motorcycle. Why can't I blow out the candles? Why? Why? My mother whispers in my ear. Because he jumps over the campfire, rain-streaked, singing out of key. With 2 forefingers of his left hand, Dad urges my shoulder back, which I understand. Thank you very much. Looking forward to all the readers.
Thank you, John. I'm Sara Cahill Marron. I think most of you know me on here. I'll go ahead and I'll introduce myself since I'm here now, and I apologize for being late. Good to hear you, John. And I was fighting the gods of technology to join the Zoom room with you all, so I'm happy to have won. I would like to welcome next Alexis Bernaut to read with us. Let me make sure that you're here.
Hi, I'm here.
Here? Okay,
Can
good.
you hear me? Yep.
I can hear you, yeah. I'll introduce you first. Alexis is a poet and translator, born in Paris, 1977. His first collection of poems, Martin Suspendo? Thank you. It was published in December 2012. His poems have been translated to English, Hebrew, Korean, and Romanian. In 2016, he was invited to the SIWF in Seoul. His latest book, Un Clos du Ratio.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, could you buzz it? It's fine.
That's okay. Was published in May 2020. Alexis, take it away.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me. Hi, everyone. I have to apologize because I'm going to read a very short poem. Only a few of my most recent poems have been translated into English, so it's more of a statement than a poem. It's a political poem, which is called, I'll read it in French first. Dieu est le plus vieux prisonnier politique des États-Unis d'Amérique. In English, it's God was the first political prisoner of the United States of America. And this is it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alexis.
Thank you. Thank you, Alexis. You know, that particular poem has had almost 280 views on the YouTube channel, so it's a very popular poem. There's a lot more from Alexis. You just have to look for his work, and there are 2 poems in the issue. Thank you, Sarah. Now I'd like to introduce Linda Morales Caballero. Linda Morales Caballero is a writer, journalist, and teacher, graduate cum laude from Hunter College. She holds a BA in Hispanic literature, in media communications, a master's in Hispanic literature. She is the author of the Book of Enigmas, whose stories have led to an award-winning short film, a play, and monologues. She has 6 poetry books and participates in multiple anthologies from festivals and book fairs from diverse places: Argentina, Bangladesh, Brazil, Costa Rica, Cuba, Egypt, El Salvador, Mexico, and the USA. Go ahead, Linda.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me and for having this presentation that makes us think about what's going on, right? I'm going to read, suggested one of the poems that is in the magazine, and then I'm going to read another poem that is not in the magazine. Let me find it. I'll try to do it from my screen. Okay, from Beltway magazine, Ogres. These awkward days of giant ogres and destruction stories collapse watchtowers in my soul. The rubble manipulated in my heart by friendly hands and panting dogs sprouts life out of love. While the earth shakes the anger men have planted on her spine, endless losses sprout hieroglyphics. Ogros. Estos días incómodos de gigantescos ogros e historias de destrucción colapsan atalayas en mi alma. Los escombros manipulados en mi corazón por manos amigas y jadeantes perros germinan vida por amor. Mientras la tierra sacude la ira que los hombres han plantado en su columna vertebral, interminables pérdidas cultivan jeroglíficos. And the next poem, it was published by the CUNY PhD program magazine. And of course, it has to do with what we lived through during the time of the pandemic in New York City this last spring, during the time where human beings were locked up and animals had the ability to be outside without our intrusion. The name is Deficits. Today, the turbulence breaks the caress prisoner on the screen. Until yesterday, masterpiece, drawn, torn. The epicenter adds up zeros when the moon breathes roses by the deer. Deficits stick out from the suppurating abyss of the mirror. Does the common lung distress you? Do the 480 million burnt do? How I love silence, the multiplication of beings, the absence of guests, wine in the udders of summer. Like blind narcissist divers, today we find urgent the calming threat of our extinction. Deficits. Hoy la turbulencia quebranta la caricia reclusa en la pantalla. Hasta ayer gemía la obra desgarrada. Ceros va sumando el epicentro cuando la luna respira rosas por los ciervos. Déficits asoman al abismo supurante del espejo. Acongoja el pulmón común. Los 480 millones de calcinados. Cómo me place el silencio, la multiplicación de los seres, la ausencia de invitados, el vino en las urbes del verano. Cual narcisistas buceadores invidentes, hoy nos parece urgente la kármica amenaza de nuestra extinción. Thank you so much.
Muchas gracias, Linda. Thank you so much. Linda is reading to us from New York, actually. She was born in Peru, but grew up in Argentina. Now I'd like to introduce a very dear friend, a new friend in a way, but she seems to me like the oldest friend I have. And I'm very, very grateful to her for her support through all of this dark period that we've been living through in the pandemic. And she's in Australia. She's an Irish poet, a great Irish poet. Her name is Anne Casey. She's authored 2 books thus far by Savin Poetry, Where the Lost Things Go and Out of Emptied Cups. She's a journalist, a magazine editor, a legal author, and media communications director. She has been all those things for 30 years. Her work is published widely and in many leading places, such as the Irish Times, where she's often picked as the most favored poet. And that's saying a lot, coming from the Irish Times in Ireland, a place of poets. Anne has won or been shortlisted for prizes in Ireland, in Northern Ireland, in the UK, the USA, Canada, Hong Kong, and Australia. and serves on numerous literary advisory boards. Go ahead, Anne.
Huge thanks, Indran, Sarah, and Don, and to everyone. It's just such an honor and a real pleasure to be part of this wonderful event. My first poem was written to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the moon landing last year. And I'm reading it because in our current global environment, I feel we really need to try and find our allied humanity, singularity, staring back through that magnificent desolation to this deviled blue globe, one dome suspended in light, the other obscured by the shadow of where you stood, immersed as you were in light particles from long dead stars. Did you wonder at our seemingly eternal journey, cycling over and over from light to dark to light, reflecting on earth, seeing home for the first time in that vast perspective, at once vivid and spectral, this silenced beauty turning slowly over its own desolate truth, the enormity of its one persisting challenge to somehow find our allied humanity, a singular planetary alignment, as subtly elusive as one perfect surface reflection, as great and bungled, as necessary as the light we feed on, as desperate to repel the dark, over and over to separate and break us apart from the specter of some alternative reality, time folded in on itself, suspending us in an other perpetual virtual truth, and the hovering ghosts of what could have been. My second poem is from my collection Where the Lost Things Go, and was also published thanks to Sarah and Indran in Beltway. And I'd like to dedicate it to the many people around the world who, like me, are exiled from home and family at the moment. This poem describes the view from my childhood bedroom window in the west of Ireland, which hasn't changed in all that time. And I hope we can all get home to reunite with our families sometime in the not too distant future. Come and find me where wailing walls of moss-rolled stone, slowly yielding to a centuried crusade, cling with smoke of long-gone bog fires, now forever married with the drifting sea mist, lifting over impossibly green fields, clutching ancient secrets, drop sharply off to pitching shale, where swarming rise with the lagging tide, running the gusts, plunging with the lulls, to swoop and pull a glistening hole under the flagging watch of a waterlocked tower, marking the ethereal line between sky and sea, and spectral hills loom long past muted islands, still harboring a shipwrecked shore. Come and find me in the dying light, where a cormorant calls unanswered, shallow over his own ghost. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you, Anne. That was beautiful. The next poet we'll call is Barbara Goldberg, who's a poet, translator, editor, and the author of 8 prize-winning books. Her new selected book, Breaking and Entering, is forthcoming. She's the recipient of 2 fellowships from the NEA, as well as awards in poetry, translation, fiction, and speechwriting. And she's the series editor of the international imprint of The Word Works. Barbara?
Hi, this is a rich, rich afternoon. So I'm going to add my voice to it by reading one charm and one kind of prayer. And the charm goes like this: amulet. May the Lord of death pass over this house. May the Lord of envy not curdle our way. May the Lord of grief release us from craving. Great Lord of time, grant us a stay. A couple of puns in there, in case you didn't notice. And the next is the kind of prayer. There for the grace. There for the grace of God. There for the grace. There for the window the housekeeper carelessly left ajar. For the 5-year-old boy who fell from the 53rd floor. There for the musician, his father, his guitar. There for the mother, and there for the cruise ship out for a cruise, for the cripple whose wheelchair was pushed and tumbled down into the Mediterranean, there for the blue of the sea, of the starling and finch and the hyacinth, there for the lover who follows the script, who touches the lips and within the mystère, there for the sweet inhalation of breath, for the arms casually raised to brush back the hair, there for the grace of God, for the grace of earth, we go.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Barbara. This is an afternoon of dear friends and great poets. Thank you. Talking of dear friends and great poets, let's keep this going with the wonderful Catherine Gonick. She's a poet I've known for many years. She's a New York poet, a Cold Spring, I think, New York at the moment. Her work has appeared in literary magazines, including New Verse News, quite recently, Notre Dame Review, Forge, and Sakun, and in anthologies, including In Plain Air and the very recently published Grabbed. She works in a company that mitigates the effects of climate change. Go ahead, Catherine.
Thank you, Indran and Sara and Beltway. I'm going to read 2 poems from Beltway. The first is the most recent. The need for herd immunity. The future appeared in the rearview camera, and I saw my death. It was a fact, but not statistical. Nor was your death a digit. Where are you anyway? My car felt dangerous, so I left it on the side of the road. I was afraid to be alone and joined the herd. We feed and move and are driven by statistical, looking so smart, so buff in leather and chaps. Such a good rider with such a big lariat. Not afraid of snakes or cliffs. Adios, dear buffalo. We say that again so you don't feel forgotten. Your fallen bodies are indeed remembered fondly. We're all together. Hola, all you other herd animals. We're about to be counted. We stop to drink from a river. Statistical oils his rifle, opens the ledger. Here comes the cavalry. And the second is from an earlier issue, on expecting a notice of eviction. Leaving home early and coming back late to avoid being served, I soon got tired and realized home is where they let you lie down, undisturbed. Leave safely in dreams and return, where you hope not to be woken with a stick, broken in upon by thieves and killers. It was too late to find safety with the tribe, join nomads enjoying fresh milk from goats, tents with rugs. Too late for convent bells, rung every 4 hours to recall soul to body and the struggle to be kind. I'd found community enough within myself, a place with no address, but many unsafe neighborhoods. Without home, there was only unkind space, body ever alert for signs of the homeless shelter, refugee camp, sidewalk, cardboard, and mat, all unthinkable until you're there. There was only unwanted time. I wanted my home as a bird wants the nest it makes by circling round and round, pressing twigs with its breast to create a smooth walled bowl just large enough inside to rest. I wanted to lie down there in my robe, pull a dream over my head, commune with the patient bird. Thanks.
Thank you, Catherine. Before introducing the next poet, I just wanted to invite anyone who has websites or links to new forthcoming work to put that information in the chat. I think that's the appropriate place to share that. I have some websites that I'm not reading in the bios, so thanks, John. Feel free to share. The next poet I've met here my short time in DC, and not seen during the pandemic, but kept in touch with briefly. Kirk Greenway is from Michigan, has written poetry since he was in second grade due to a school assignment. 3 years later, he was exposed to French language and violin, which has influenced him ever since. He has written papers on social science from the University of Chicago, and these papers include discourse on historical monologue and other subjects such as the Great London Fire of 1666 and other studies in discourse. Kirk, will you read us some poetry?
Hello, everyone. I'm going to read two poems. The first poem is kind of a hymn in praise of science, and also, I believe, appropriate due to all the fires that are raging out in the Western United States, Australia, other places. It's called Annus Mirabilis, and it's set in the 17th century in London. 1. Flags flying, flags posted, flagella whip liquid broth, paramecia, whisking their way through an ocean in a raindrop, a tear. A royal baker leaves ashes in a haystack in Pudding Lane. Raise the flag. The Lord Mayor will come, but we will not knock down houses for fear of paying their owners. Let them burn. Half-masted flags hanging in memoriam. The little ice age is gone, and with it, frost fairs. Sasha, Frost, fair and gray, sitting on a stone wall. Flagrare burning. Favors fire, fences, no matter once, living sparks. The cause could be the pineapple. They were going to sit on Old St. Paul's. Better a dome that Wren, that lover of the epicyclic, would place a pillar in its center, which almost touched the dome. The support was needed to protect the prayerful from hermetic science. Conflagration, 65, 66, violence, spiraling from an unknown cause, a flea riding the back of a rat, baccarat reel turning, the wind blowing through a flag, flapping loosely, a piece of cut sod spreading, from plague to a great fire in a year, London, home of Frost Fair on the River Thames, only a decade earlier. 5 days later, the fire is over, and Milton is safe in the country. Evelyn, Hook, and Wren clamber through the ruins, the smoking trash, lost in ruins, burning the soles of their shoes, conceiving a plan. Luckily, only 6 are dead, or so they said. Evelyn and Wren dream the city will become as orderly as a cantonment, with grid-like street patterns and hard-angled regularity. And Hook wants to stamp fast a Cartesian grid of squares. Did you hear Milton and Newton are safe in the country? Milton is dreaming of the victory of a flaming sword over the fallen angels. Newton sees other worlds in his bedroom, his mother's orchard, anywhere apple falls, no snake, no Eve, no Adam, an occult force deployed in an inverse square. Gravity is that force that breathes no life, but no life without it. Against its bending, springs recoil, and wooden steeples scratch the sky sharp as spruce. 2. How empty the streets feel. So many poor and sick there, full of sores. One cries, he cannot breathe, as pneumonic plague puts him under its grasp. As I walk, I overhear many sad stories, everyone talking of the dead. So many in this place, and so many in that I hear in Westminster. There is never a doctor, and but one pharmacist left, all being dead. There are great hopes of a great decrease this week, said Pepys. Milton is glaucomatous in the country, unable to see this plight. A year later, Pepys braves ash, smoke, and fallen brick to find a feline taken out of a hole in the chimney with the hair all burned off the body, and yet alive. Let us call that cat London. 3. Carousels of horses, eyes watching the Thames. The Lord Mayor at last orders lost buildings destroyed close to the fire, only to see them engulfed before they could be cleared away. Imagine all the broken roof tiles on the ground as Pepys and Wren made their masked walks through the pyre. A mask could not hide the Lord Mayor's shame. 4. After a fire, most people find in ashes melted objects to remind them of their cremated dreams. Milton took a revolution written by amanuenses, and Newton brought visions of prismatic color and a force so weak only through starlight and torsion pendula can it be revealed. After the plague, a young astronomer named Halley visited Hooke to see if he had an inverse law for gravity. He promised him he would find it in his papers. Halley asked Newton if he had one, and he did. Now we do not know Hooke's face, since Newton destroyed his only portrait in anger. Hooke said he had invented Newton's law. One can fathom human wrath, but when the lifeless murderer strikes us with the whip of an almost weightless paramecium, and we are left to burn in frosted space, drowning in our lungs, as a nurse in a spacesuit holds a phone to our face, with our beloved saying farewell, we could be an astronaut, leaving a set of prisms on the moon, so a laser-wielding scientist could measure how it traces across the sky. As we descend into the ocean, as we descend into our tears, will a Stradivarius play a tune? That violin is made of special wood from a little ice age when spruce grew more slowly, their rings thinned, whose string vibrates sonorous as the alpine air, the cool summers of Cremona long ago. Will the Messiah play for us? And please indulge me one more poem. This one is a poem that is based on my imagined hallucination of being in an ICU, dying of COVID, and what I might see. It's called Twilight in Summer. The door left open, the lamp left burning inside the lace curtain. Remove your mantequilla, cast the gold necklace to the floor. Long leather gloves, buttons carefully undone, lone firefly surveys the rooms in Brownian motion. Crickets play their legs. Unlocked the double doors. Drapery ripples like flags. windows wide open to the sunburned breezes and kicked off hose. Your skirt dropped on the steps in a circle transcendental flowing like long hair. More lace left on the floor by the bed, or is it gauze to seal every wound? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kirk. Just a note, Alvaro Mataguilla had a time issue. He's in Mexico, so he should be checking in soon. Now, I would like to introduce the next poet, a great poet and translator. He's
Indran.
Yeah.
Alvaro is here in the waiting room. I just admitted him.
Okay. We can go to him next after the next poet. Okay. I'm not quite sure how to begin to introduce Jack Hirschman, but I'll say a few things he sent us. Emeritus Poet Laureate of San Francisco, founding member of Revolutionary Poets Brigade of San Francisco, begun in 2009. And now there are 5 brigades in the USA, 2 in France, 5 in Italy. A founding member of the World Poetry Movement centered in Medellin, Colombia, and a member of the League of Revolutionaries for a New America. He's completing a 4th volume of his Arcanes. Now, these are 1,000-page books. These are not just any minor, small book. And Jack has published more than 50 or more books in the course of his career. Go ahead, Jack.
Thank you, Indran. Great to be with all you poets and to hear you all. And Sarah and Indran chose a couple of arcanes, which is named for my little longer poems. They're not that long. That I will read a couple of arcanes here. The first one is called the Nora Arcane. I can't begin writing this poem about you, Nora, without wanting suddenly to write a Hebrew letter. I'm a rather militant anti-Zionist, as you know, and will have no word to say to any opportunist who makes a religion of the Holocaust and says Karl Marx was full of shit. I know your Jewishness verges on Zionism, that Israel for you in your days is Israel more than 5,000 years ago, that you don't see the Palestinians as the real Jews of today, that you keep to Israel in living memory, and that is something after the bestial Holocaust I understand, even though politically it's engendered reciprocal evil. Yet thinking of you makes me want to write or draw a Hebrew letter, any one of the Aleph Beis. I've learned them all through my 86 years alive, because I've always adored their shape, the way you always adored me, dearest cousin. Perhaps through my father Sheppy, for his having always made you hysterically laugh with his 100 jokes. And though you never knew David, my son, who died at 25 of cancer in California, you planted a tree of life in his name in Israel the following year. And for that, what might an old communist Kabbalist say except, may you be the thunder that rumbling says Aleph Beis Gimel Dalet Hey Vav, that announces the rain of the tears that wash away the pain of the fears between. And the second, that I'm very honored that Sara and Indran published in Beltway, is called the Gaza Arcane. 1. Shema, hear me, a child born and raised originally in Superman's capital of death, whose rule is trumpery. This stack of matzahs I fling one after another across your Rosh Hashanah, clear to your Yom Kippur, like a paroxysm of memory, a matzography of unforgettable irony of ironies. You, who were so holocausted by the Nazis, have created the largest concentration camp in the world in Gaza. Yes, we in Gaza, when Sadi Shobaki, age 18, Amir al-Nimra, age 15, Luai Khan, age 16, Kami Halas, 14, Nasser Shurab, 18, Luai Hassan, 13, organized a series of nonviolent protests calling for the return of Palestinians exiled all over the world. You murdered them in cold state blood and sniped their legs or slingshot arms off. An irony of the ovens where Nazis incinerated so many of your families. Those New York settler thugs celebrating a wedding were crying out, "Ali's on the grill," referring to Ali Dolbershe, whose 18-month-old body they burned to death. 2. Dilapidated shacks or even tents in which we live, all crazy now, without a capital, and filling with apartheidoia Gaza, where Gaza, who made rainbow, Dareen Tator, you magnificent terrorist, poet, and you, Ahed Tamimi, who physically took on a couple of Israeli cops, you, of a family of grassroots activists, sister of Razan al-Najjar, that glorious 21-year-old who gave her life helping to nurse the wounded in the protests. We don't hole up. We stuff malice. Be terror cool. Steer no one wrong. Even as arms are torn, even as wounded legs are smoking.
Thank you. Thank you, Jack. Sara?
We want to have Alvaro Matagia read? If
Okay, that's fine. I thought we'd go after the next poet, but that's fine. Let's do Alvaro now. I can introduce him. Alvaro, are you on? ¿Estás ahí, Alvaro? Bueno, vamos a presentarte ahora. Alvaro Mataguille has sent us a very short bio. He's a Mexican writer, a playwright, a cultural facilitator, and an essayist. So he wins the prize for the pithiest bio, but his life and his work in poetry is not at all pithy. And in fact, he's an amazing, ceaseless worker for the good of poetry, organizing festivals and colloquia and writing and bringing people together, poets together and audiences together throughout the Americas. Alvaro, adelante.
Bien, thank you, Indran. Thank you, everybody. I will read in Spanish and Indran will read in English. I will read sobre los fragmentos. ¿Qué empieza? ¿Qué termina? Transitamos de una noche a otro atardecer, a otra niebla, sabiendo que cada instante al tocarnos es el último, que no somos eternos, que el tiempo no es nuestro, solo su indiferencia, que emergemos de la oquedad, del silencio, de lo ausente. Se dice que un ciclo termina y empieza otro, un algo que se cierra, un algo distinto que aparece. Pero si hay una nueva etapa, lo cual supongamos sea cierto, y esa se avecina como un resplandor en la penumbra, ¿qué sería lo distinto de ese otro desprendido del entorno? ¿Qué hace que la lluvia deje de ser lluvia o el viento se haya viento y palpen las cosas de otra forma? ¿Qué habría que atispar que provoque otro grito, otro rostro, otra niebla? La orfandad que padecemos al descubrirnos en tránsito hacia lo ausente evidencia la necesidad del otro, complemento, ajenidad, lejanía, búsqueda, encuentro y desencuentro apegado al deseo, a la epidermis, a la extrañeza, reencontrándonos con lo ausente, mirando la bruma en el exilio, en el desierto, en el horizonte diluido en el sol sumergiéndose en el monte, atraído por la sombra. Allá, en lugar del inicio donde reposa el pájaro escondido en la nube, detrás del árbol, detrás del eco sumido en el valle. Desde ahí, escondidos en el umbrío, reflejándonos en la exaltación de la bóveda de piedra, en el anhelo de absoluto, en el no saber con su sed de pregunta que da sentido a la permanencia, al significado de lo que somos. Soledad que se persigue en los adentros del lenguaje, tránsito de una noche a otra que retorna a un sueño que no despierta, como las hojas, que al desplazarse en el destello de la sombra, se evaporan. Se dice que un ciclo termina, un algo que se cierra, un algo distinto que aparece, pero los vocablos se diluyen en lo ausente y no hay otro lugar más que la penumbra.
What begins, what ends. We transit from one night to the other, to another nightfall, another fog, knowing that each instant touching us is the last, that we aren't eternal, that time isn't ours, only its indifference, that we emerge from hollowness, from silence, from the absent. It is said that one cycle ends and another begins. There's something that closes, there's something different that appears. But if there is a new phase, which we suppose is true, and it approaches as a radiance in the half-light, what would the difference be from that other detachment of the environment? What makes rain stop being rain, or wind from it no longer being wind, and that their caress is now different? What should be glimpsed upon so that it provokes another yell, another countenance, another fog? The orphanage we endure as we discover ourselves in transit towards death is evidence of the other's need, companion, disaffection, distance, pursuit, encounter and loss of encounter, adhered to desire, to the epidermis, the strangeness we're encountering with the absent, looking at the gloom in the exile, in the desert, in the sun-diluted horizon, submerging in the hill, attracted by the shadow, there in the place of the beginning, where the bird lies hidden in the cloud, behind the tree, behind the sunken echo in the valley, from there, hidden in the umbrage, reflecting in the exaltation of the stone vault, in the absolute longing, in the not knowing with its thirst of questioning that gives meaning to the permanence, to the meaning that we are solitude, the chasers in the insides of language, the transit from one night to the other that returns into a dream that doesn't awaken. Like leaves as they glide in the beam of the shadow, they evaporate. It is said a cycle ends, something that closes, something distinct that appears. The terms dilute in the absent, and no other place but the half-light. From the book Sobre los Fragmentos. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much, Alvaro.
Thank you.
And thank you. Excelente. Sarah, would you like to introduce the next poet?
Yes, next we'll invite James McKee. And James has a debut poetry collection called The Stargazers, published early 2020. I would ask him to tell us when early, pre or post pandemic, with other poems appearing or forthcoming in journals such as New Ohio Review, New World Writing, the Akko Tillo Review, Eliminations, Cut Bank, Raintown Review, Flyway, Saranac Review, Think, the Midwest Quarterly, Xavier Review, and elsewhere. He would like everyone to know that he spends his free time when not writing or reading, traveling less than he would like, and brooding more than he can help. James, please read us a poem.
Thank you, Sarah. I would like to thank Indran and Sara for bringing us all together today, and Don for making this happen. I'm going to read two poems that have a common theme, which I think is appropriate for our gathering today. And they're both about how poetry strives or hopes, or at least gestures towards establishing a sense of community in a dark time. The first one is called Another CNN-Induced Lyric Outburst. Bad news first thing this morning. The whole day's ruined. It's over. But hold on now. Let's show some initiative here. Why settle again for being a defeated observer of the spectacle when I am, after all, a creator, in fact, a poet? And so it falls to such as me to align the channels of language with the floods of feeling, such as they are, let loose by these times, such as they are, yet not through a poem about the bad news, because it's not about the bad news. It's about what we do about the bad news, right? No, but instead with a poem which, to review, is a verbal artifact widely considered forbiddingly esoteric, but actually, if done right, a source of unique and lasting pleasure. A poem that betrays a love of its world, which of course includes the bad news, and seems to know much more than it has room to say, and seduces us by design into almost remembering it. A poem that knows better than merely to distract from the bad news, or enact a generic outrage over it, or brandish whatever gestures are popular right now, or even, as I think does happen, aestheticize the bad news and thereby collude in it. So no, not a poem like that, but one that does for the reader what the earth does for its forests, what the forests do for our air, what the dead end up doing for the living, what the living do or should do for each other, what each of us is doing, whether we know it or not, for the future, what the future, or what used to be the future, and not the one that the bad news just brought closer, what the future, if we weren't afraid to remember it, is supposed to do and might still do for us all. Thank you. That's the first one. And now the second poem is called Confessional. Here we go. Friends, I'm having one of those days. Everything's bad and getting worse. It's obvious by now that for all the valiant and selfless striving, most of us won't change fast enough for it to matter. The trash, the cars, the meat, the water. Do your part or don't. Trust science or that guy on YouTube. It's the same. Friends, as a poet, I shouldn't be writing this, but my mood's in no mood to worry about how it makes me sound. Well, challenge accepted. Ask yourselves this. What were you expecting when you breezed in here past a title like the one above? Something squalid and personal, all binges, breakdowns, and performative trauma? Sorry to disappoint, but in my disclosure, the catastrophe on display is you, not me. Fact is, friends, I'm ashamed for our species, and for most of us as individuals too. I wish it wasn't like that, but it is. Boom. So you can understand why I'm always coming back here, this bright no place where I'm never too proud to remember kindnesses shown me when I was poor or lonely or foolish by someone with nothing to gain. Because here, the rinsed light of morning never quite fades from the view out over green quilt-worked fields, orchards, a river sweeping grandly off towards the sea beyond. And today, you came, which makes me glad, because why shouldn't it? It does. It will. Here I wish us all well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Now I'd like to, we are coming towards a rousing finish to our reading. We have 4 poets to hear from. Lalita Norongha is based in Baltimore, which is not far from where I'm sitting. She's a scientist, a poet, a former editor of the Baltimore Review, the author of a short story collection, Where Monsoons Cry, a poetry book, Mustard Seed, a collage of science, art, and love poems, and the recipient of 3, not 2, not 1, but 3 Maryland Individual Artist Awards, and in 3 different categories: fiction, poetry, and creative nonfiction. That really, I think, is a feat to be recognized. Lalita, thank you very much for contributing. Go ahead. Are you, Lalita? Are you on mute, Lalita? Dawn, do you see Lalita?
Now can you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you. Yes.
Okay, all right, sorry.
Did you hear the introduction? Yeah.
You heard the introduction?
Did you? Did you?
No.
Oh, well, I'll tell you later. I praised you no end. Go ahead.
Thank you so much.
All
Thank you. I'm going to read 2 poems. One is a short poem that's in the current issue of Beltway Poetry. And this poem is called The Aquarium. When we parted, I took the aquarium we'd bought with rolled up pennies, $20 in all. And for 32 years, that fish tank shimmered color. Red swordtails, silver dollars, guppies, a forked tail paradise gourami, with bright orange stripes and metallic blue spots over its body. Now the tank needs a new filter system, new thermometer, sump pump, plants, stones, new fish teeming with colors of the rainbow in a new home. Yet I keep this old aquarium, my anchor to where I've been, unwilling to start all over in the heat of memory and uncertainty once again. And the second poem is, thank you. The second poem is from my book. It's called, like Mustard Seed. I don't know if you can see it, but it's called Mustard Seed, a collage of science, art, and love poems. And I'm just going to read the one from it. And it's called 40 Years Later, What I Know. Let me say this about immigrants who burrow through the earth to swim in rivers whose names they lisp. Mississippi, Missouri, so many S's, hisses, misses, the Grand Canyon they fly over with paper wings. I love the way they step off a plane or boat into a silky twilight, towing belongings, prayer beads, bamboo flutes, jute bags, scraps of this and that, passports and photographs, leaving behind scorched chimneys, banana leaves, monkeys hanging by their feet from trees. But here is what they do not say. We will never be whole again. We cannot in truth uproot. We will grow fins, wings, scales, tails, watercolored third eyes. We will use our arms as legs, heels as fists, bellies and backs as floats. We will fill our mouths with ash. We will chill our teeth, drink the acrid wine of separation, and sleep through occasions, birth, death, days between, for this one chance to awaken, grateful, still surprised. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was beautiful, Lolita. The next reader that we will invite is Simon Shushat, who is a retired diplomat. He has translated the Russian writer Dmitry Prigov, the book Soviet Texts, which is Dmitry is a Moscow conceptualist, and that book was just published by Ugly Duckling Press. Simon, will you read us a poem?
Hi, so this is Simon Shukit. The first thing I'll read is from the book, which you can see behind me, that of Dmitry Alexandrovich Prigov. I also want to just say it's a great personal, it's a great pleasure to be reading with Jack Hirschman, because one of my dreams for this book of Prigov is that it will be as important and as useful to other poets as Hirschman's anthology of Antonin Artaud was for me when I read it 50 years ago. So that's a great pleasure. Some of the poems, the pieces that were in the Beltway Quarterly review were from this book, and I'm going to read one of them from a sequence called My Russia, which was written by Prigov when the Soviet Union was in the process of actually collapsing, the last few years of the Soviet Union and the beginning of the post-Soviet era. I had a dream. At first, all was like it always is, and then I died, or it died, and all went drifting. All became wild, insane. That is, it seemed like pure mania. And gathering my strength, recalled, hey, I fell asleep while out in Germany, but then I've woken up in Russia. And I compelled myself with insane force to once again in Germany wake up for now. So there are other sections from that poem, that sequence in the issue, because he was responding to a different kind of catastrophe. The other poem that I'm going to read is by me, not a translation, and it's called After Charles Olson, but it's mostly in reference to an opera based on the Greek myth or story of Alcestis and Admetus. So, after Charles Olson, Admetus tells Alceste she can't exchange her life for his. Her life is his to dispose of. He says this as sovereign and as husband. She goes through with it anyway, though Hercules, mighty mouse of his time, here I come to save the day, secures life for both. Gluck's 1776 opera, French libretto how, I just discovered I was muted. Was I muted before?
No, just now. Just
Okay,
now,
you've been able to hear
1
everything
second.
else. So Gluck's 1776 opera, French libretto with input from J.J. Rousseau, a work which Franklin or Jefferson might have seen. Topical allegory lost in the sea breeze. Thoughts on power. Sacrifice for the sovereign, a sacrifice for the people, if the people truly want it. Admetus worries that his children will blame him for taking away their mother merely to prolong his life. Never mind, he never ordered it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you, Simon. I was just, how can I say it? I've got to, all good things have to come to an end, but they will come to an end, not quite yet. And they're going to end in a very strong way, as they've begun in a strong, and they'll continue strong. The next poet is a Turkish poet, an old friend, lives in London. Her name is Şebnem Senyeni, and she's really a novelist. She has published 6 novels, letters writ by a Turkish spy, February 30th, the murder of the belly dancer, the merchant of character, the song of death is free, and we loved each other with 1,000 eyes. And she is also a poet, and she gave us some poems for this issue. Go ahead, Şebnem.
Hello, everybody. What a wonderful feast of poetry. Thank you, Indran. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Don, with all this and the organization of this event. I will read Sulmo mihi patria est to Ovid. I have been dream walking through a valley of the Apennine. No idea how and when. There is snow on the fields, the moss crisped and iced and slipping underneath. Here and there, only antlers appear. The cumulus clouds lay near ground, blanketing the deer. This giddy hide and seek is closely watched by the sun, and the morning is giving the birds an extra breath to sing. Each is a groom with black tail and whitest shirt, readying in line, in joy, soon to conquer the Amaro peak. But then, as if their cue, I hear a sweet bouzouki from the other side of the sea. You in your white shirt, half tucked in, your pants so loose now, hardly kept on your lips. Their hems piling up on your shoes, shoes backs folded down, step down, holding your hands up to your sirtaki step. Slowly bending, slowly rising. Curving rocks, carry me to your arms, to your hug, ending our longing in this land. The Mayela, the oldest virgin, is getting married today, already crowned with the most beautiful tulle, the longest bridal veil. I must have come here to her wedding, and I ask why? Why is your veil white and not red? Red like the Anatolian brides, when brides wore it in the Levant, like a shining flame from head to toe. Flammum it was, which gave its name to the Anatolian poppies, gelincik, young brides. They say, we know you already. Don't worry about the answers of such questions. You too are a prisoner of heart. Come, join, have some wedding soup. With it, we provide that bitter bread of exile. You and your like kind have been ascending and descending its stairs. Sometimes even in endless skyscrapers in that far, too far west, they say its arrow is blind now and the bow in waiting. I ask, what happened to the solitude? This, they say, releasing a long breath, is celebrating its 2,000 years of birth. The old strife between Ovidius and Augustus, the poet and the emperor, the poem and the crime. Those damned 6 letters he wrote and his scribe scribed, and the order of Carmen, a song, became Crimen, a crime. Is Carmen the song that has become a crime ever since? 2,000 years on, its poet sentenced forever to exile. The song of Nightingale in 7 heavens was written by a mistake in a mix-up. A voice that misread the emphasis in the wrong place to condemn the heart to eternal prison bars of love. I open my arms to give you a long hug, a hug for long, much too long goodbye, to say it's home that has arrived, here in Piazza 20 Settembre, in front of Ovidius, enveloped in his own thoughts, unaware of my visit. In his mind, he is in his exile, there in Ovidius Square in Constanza, standing tall, holding his chin in bronze, and still whispering of his homecoming. Sulmo, mihi patria est. Sulmo is homeland to me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Sarah, it's all yours to introduce the last poet before we're going to have some time to have a bit of a conversation among all of us. So if you have any questions that you would like to ask, and you feel free. We have some time right after we finish the reading with the next poet. We have saved, whatever I say, the best for last. Go ahead, Sarah.
I almost don't want to. Last, we have Carolyn Tipton. She teaches at UC Berkeley and has won fellowships both from the NEH and the NEA. Her first book, To Painting, Poems by Raphael Alberti, won the National Translation Award, and her second book, Translated Poems by Alberti, is called Returnings, Poems of Love and Distance, and that won the Cliff Becker Translation Prize. Her third book is titled The Poet of Poet Laval, a collection of original poetry, and has been recently published by Salmon Poetry of Ireland. Carolyn, go ahead.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Indran. Thank you, all my fellow readers, and thank you, everyone, for staying. Thank you, Wendy from Madrid. The first poem I'll read is the one published in Beltway. It's for my friend Ann Casey. Lost Day. You said when you flew to Sydney from St. Louis, you left on Wednesday and arrived on Friday. The time elapsed was more than the flight time. For just a moment, I forgot about the international dateline, thinking just of your lost day. What happened to Thursday? Maybe you lived a different kind of time. Maybe you don't remember. Maybe the veil grew thin and you passed through and saw your mother, your first dog. Or was it just shifting scenes, all the confusion of a dream? Beautiful confetti of petals, faces, sparkles on the sea? Or could you mold it as you wished? A series of perfect moments, that surprising second kiss, the moment when you realized you could read, that picnic afternoon so long ago, the cloth spread out, the light just right, and everyone around you. Or if the lost day were not a recap, not a montage of your past, something not experienced, new. What might it have been like post-coronavirus, afterwards? No longer a dissonance between global events and a perfect blue day. No daily daunting death tolls. What if the greater world would now be marked with more equality, and we could turn once more to each other, never again failing to appreciate touch. And when he came to you, you would be that guitar in the corner, dusty from disuse, and he'd pick you up, he'd hold you then and play you. Everything would shimmer with the newness Adam saw in the garden, the birds back a little early, not even waiting for full spring. Thank you. The last poem is The Poet of Poet Laval, which gave the title to my book. It's part of it tells a true story based on my mistake. The word P-O-E-T, poet, with a few variations, means poet in most Romantic languages. So I thought. But it also is about what poems can do. The Poet of Poet Laval writes prescriptions for sleep, listing sonorous ingredients whose names you only have to read before slipping into a deep canyon descended by way of rustling poplars, humming of bees and oceans of deep-colored lavender, the slap of the waves of those oceans, and there at the bottom, dream's diagonal door of light and shadow, the one you never are aware of passing through. The Poet of Poet Laval is a useful poet, writes poems that seed the heart you thought non-arable, soon stirrings, presentiments of the wild and bright red poppies. The Poet of Poet Laval does not exist. Poet Laval is a village, very old, in the north of Provence. Touched by the thought of a village named after a poet, I visited Poet Laval and asked after him. Who had he been and where could I read his poems? These questions made everyone laugh until a kind woman took me aside. It's like this, she said. In Provençal, poet means mountain. So, no famous writer of poems ever lived here. No favorite son who went to Paris and became renowned. No local troubadour who song about a woman's eyes, though she's been underground 900 years, is still remembered. Not even one beloved in his time for his lyrics celebrating big events, the spectacular grape harvest, the long-delayed completion of the church, the late birth to the lonely childless couple. And so I conjure a poet for this town. In her poems, no matter what the words describe, a window opens up. Through it, the evening sky of a summer long ago, its first stars through the branches, the rhyming white blossoms whose breathed-in scent brings back the sense that anything is possible. All of it given back, everything restored. Just for the moment of reading, of course, but the spaciousness lingers inside. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please open all your, unmute everyone, please, so we can have a free-for-all here for a few minutes. It's nice to have a happy free-for-all. I know we can't meet in person, face-to-face, so let's do it here.
If I may say.
Go ahead.
It was great to see you all. I have another Zoom, so I have to go off in about 5 minutes to get to the other Zoom. But I'm very pleased to have read with you all and to have seen actually Alexis Bernaut from Paris. Great to see you. We published him in a work in the Building Socialism anthology. His work has appeared in San Francisco.
Jack, before you go, do you have a few words for us before you go, just aside from the other Zoom? I know you have many more things you could, a bit of parting wisdom for our
well,
times.
all right, for our times or for this, okay? Well, I'll just say one day I'm going to give up writing and just paint. I'm going to give up painting and just sing. I'm going to give up singing and just sit. I'm going to give up sitting and just breathe. I'm going to give up breathing and just die. I'm going to give up dying and just love. I'm going to give up loving and just write.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. That was a Beltway first, Jack. We're gonna take the copyright of that poem.
Take care, all. Lovely being with you all.
Lovely. Thank you.
Take care, Jack.
Thank you, Jeff.
I must say I have Alexis on my mind. You know, Alexis, you just read that one very brief poem. Do you have another one on hand that you might share with us?
Well, actually, there's one that I haven't finished translating yet, which because I'm translating my own stuff, and this is why I'm very, shy about it, because, we shouldn't do that. But it's a poem I wrote in French. I was a friend and the translator of Sam Hamill, whom you might know, who founded Copper Canyon Press and who was a poet and translator and essayist. And he died 2.5 years ago. And it so happened that the second anniversary of his death was just at the time of the first lockdown. I'm calling it the first lockdown because we're having a second one here in France. And I have it in French, and the English is not done yet, but I'm going to try and improvise this, if you indulge me.
Yes, go ahead.
So, in French, it's 2 ans après ta mort. Tes poumons déjà t'interdisaient tout voyage en avion, tout projet d'avenir. Non, le Covid-19 ne t'aurait rien appris de la ténuité du souffle, du manque des amis lointains, de l'incurie bavarde d'eux qu'on dit politiciens. Tu savais les ressassements solitaires, mais la poésie, mais le vin, mais la grande espérance, la rigueur inflexible de la paix. Non, le Covid-19 ne t'aurait rien appris. Tu es parti à ton heure, arrivé, je crois, à bon port. À 2 années près, on aurait soustrait ta mort. Which in English goes something like, it's 2 years after your death. Your lungs had already made it impossible for you to fly or plan anything ahead. No, COVID-19 wouldn't have taught you anything new about the subtlety of breathing, about the distance between friends, about the noisy incompetence of those who would lead our lives. The solitary broodings you knew, yes, but poetry, yes, but wine, yes, but the great hope, the adamant rigor of peace. No, COVID-19 wouldn't have taught you anything new. You left when your time had come, and you've made it home safe. I'd say 2 years after, they would have stolen your death. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm so glad you read for the poem for Sam Hamill, because yes, a legend, in our community. And his work with Copper Canyon, his own work proselytizing poetry around the world. Thank you. Thank you, Alexis. Please go ahead. Anyone would ask any questions or would like to comment, please feel free.
Indran,
Go ahead.
can you tell us a little about your YouTube channel, how it works, what you do, how you get onto it, and so on, for those of us less tech savvy?
Oh, that's very kind of you. Yeah, the idea of the channel is to just publish a kind of an archive of our time, essential poems of our time in different languages. So there's no limit to the language. For the moment, we've been publishing in English and French and Spanish, in Portuguese, and there's one poem in Haitian Creole. But we're going to hopefully get other languages, other poets sending in work. And it's free to sign up, but it's obviously hosted by YouTube. So you have to just go to the link that I sent in the chat, and click on that. And then there's a subscribe line. You can click subscribe, and you should be able to subscribe as easy as that. If not, you may have to put in your email and some information, and then you'll be subscribed. Once you're subscribed, you'll receive notifications of new poems that have been posted on the channel, and you'll be able to engage with each other in a kind of a virtual community. So I encourage you to subscribe. Doesn't cost anything, and I'd be happy to keep sort of running it until I expire. So let's, whenever that will be. And then I will hand it over to someone else to take off. Thank you. If anyone needs the link, it's in the chat. Huh? Yeah.
So I have a
word
small
about-
request. Apart from the poems which are already on Beltway, it would be nice to read the poems which are not there, which were read today, because I'm a very slow grasper of poetry, and I read 3 or 4 times before anything sinks in. Plus, I like to read it myself in the private. So it would be lovely if you can sort of set up an email thing, and if people want to share, that'll be lovely.
Okay.
Thank
you. Just reach out to me and Sarah, and we can coordinate that. Yeah. Anyone who would like to hear poems that were read today. And feel free to record the poems separately as videos for the YouTube channel, and also just to share, because it's a really good new resource I'm finding to get work out very quickly throughout the world. I'm waiting for my first poem in the Uzbek language. It's coming soon, so I'll let you know when it's out. And thank you, Shadeep, for staying up through the night in India. Well,
No, I was actually planning to go to sleep after an hour, but I think you guys are, such good poets that you made me stay awake. So I
Very
blame you
good.
for my sleep.
And we
It's
have
a
with
real
us some of the poets who read last week as well. Thank you, Nancy Naomi, for joining us. And she read 2 poems. She has 2 poems in the issue, and there are others with us. Anyone else would like to ask a question? We have about, we'll stop it in 12 minutes. So we have 12 minutes if you'd like to go exactly for 2 hours, and then we'll stop.
I would like to ask a question.
Yes.
I would like to know a little more, if possible, about Catherine Gonick's work with nature. I think Indran mentioned she works for an organization.
Oh.
Right. Catherine, do you want to answer that? Go ahead.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, I'm part of a company that is, it's hard to give you the 30,000 foot view in a second, but it's trying to mitigate the effects of climate change by going places and forming partnerships with parties that have waste to get rid of, and we have ways to get rid of it cleanly. And
wonderful.
And then produce a byproduct called biochar or char, the same as Loma Prieta in Brazil, or Tierra Prieta. And it's this stuff that looks like charcoal, but it's not. And it does a million useful things that boil down to sequestering carbon and can lead the world toward carbon neutrality or negativity. So
great.
Yeah.
Very good.
Where are you located?
We're based in Cold Spring, New York, and the company's in Isle of Man for patent protection, but it's known as a tax haven too. But we have lots of patents, so that's what happened.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for
so glad
asking.
you're doing, I'm so glad somebody's doing something, about global warming.
Well, it's a real uphill battle, and ironically, the pandemic has opened up new avenues because it's brought home, that zoonotic diseases have something to do with climate change.
Of course.
Yeah.
And there is no much awareness, so that is also another good cause,
Oh, yeah. I mean, all the noise of billions of people and inertia, and yeah, it's very instructive to try to do something like this. It's worse than writing.
Well, we
Very
can do
good.
it through writing. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. And I think you've been asked to post the company's website info, Catherine. So if you want to do that on the chat, feel free.
Oh, well, I would do it, but we're kind of keeping a low profile and you won't see much.
Okay.
But
Well,
people could,
we can get information offline then.
yeah.
Come in touch with you.
Thank
Through the Isle of Man. Yes. Okay. Sounds good. Very good. Thank you. You know, climate change is one of the four principal planks of the incoming Biden-Harris administration here in the United States. It's one of the four priorities, along with racial equity, economic growth, and climate change, racial equity, economic growth, and there's one other, poetry. That's right. That's right. That's the other one. Any case, so keep that in mind. But I don't want to make things politicize things here. I'm just advising you that there is climate change is back in a big way.
Yeah, let's hope so. That'd be good.
And other questions, comments? We have the Paris Accord representative here in Alexis. So
Yeah.
that's very good. Other comments, questions? John, how are things in Philadelphia these days? Calmer now?
They're a little calmer than after the election. We were dancing in the streets, I guess 2 weeks ago. But yeah, it's we're doing all right. There was a New York Times article about my hometown in Nova Scotia about how it's almost COVID free. So I'm happy that my parents are safer than I am. But anyway, thanks for this, Indran.
Thank you. By the way, John is a wonderful literary critic, and he'll be speaking about cold poetry, hot poetry, and migrant poetry and contemporary American poetry on Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The invitation will be on Facebook. Sarah will join him, and I will also join him for a chat for about an hour about these themes, rather profound themes about what is cold poetry, what is hot poetry. Well, if you can tune in on Tuesday, you'll find out. And thank you. Thank you, John, for all your good work, critical work. He was the first reviewer we published in the Beltway as well, and very glad for that.
I'll just put the my article on cold poetry in the chat if anybody's curious.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Indran.
Sure. Other questions, comments? We have a few minutes. How are things in Australia with climate change and the current government there?
Oh, things I write about all the time and worry about. Yeah, still a great lot of investment in coal mining, unfortunately. So yeah, lots of opportunities for protest poetry. Hopefully there'll be some changes soon. I mean, there are some good things happening with sustainable energy here. So hopefully the direction will turn towards that rather than the fossil fuels.
Good. And are you planning to publish a book this coming year?
2021, I've got 2 books coming out. One in Ireland and one in Australia. So exciting.
Great.
Thanks.
Other questions, comments? Luther Jett is with us. He's a wonderful poet, lives in Maryland. He's published several times with Beltway, not in this particular issue, but he's one of our stalwarts and one of our reviewers as well. Luther, would you like to ask any comments or make any comments? You have to unmute.
Apparently I had to do that manually.
Okay.
No, I'm just grateful to be able to hear such a diverse array of words and poems from around the globe, I guess. People, Anne Casey, it's already tomorrow for Anne and Shudip. So You know, we're looking into the future while sitting here in the Washington, D.C. area. And so I'm very excited to just be here and be in the room where it's happening.
I just want to say something fairly personal. Indran and I go back over 30 years. In fact, we went to the same university, same college, a year apart, I believe, right?
Yes,
Or
at the graduate
a few
school.
years.
Graduate school,
Yeah,
Columbia.
we were at the Graduate School of Journalism at Columbia University. And in fact, Indran and I co-founded a reading series, which was very, very popular in New York when I was living there. It was called PWSI, Poets and Writers Studio International. And it was held in my apartment in an Indian style way. So people had to leave their shoes and everything outside. And we would all sit on the floor. And there was only one chair in my apartment, which was my study chair. There was very little furniture in any case, you know, student life. And we had the sort of lamp shining on the poet, and we passed the hat around. And we used to collect quite a lot of money, and whatever money we would collect, we would just divide it amongst the poets, minus the wine cost, of course. You know, 2 big vats of cheap wine, which went really quickly. But Indran, I remember those days really, really fondly. We had such fabulous people who read for us, you know. I mean, top-notch poets and novelists and so on. I still have the invitation card which we printed. What was that photocopying shop? Quick,
I think, yes.
Something, yeah. QUIK or something. I'll send that across to you, yeah.
Okay.
30 odd years ago. But good to hear you all.
Yeah, the magazine is almost a meeting place of old friends and the making of new friends. It's a very intimate space, this magazine, even though it's on the public internet and open for all and sundry to examine. It's a place of great love, and there's a lot of love in each line that you write, but also in the assembling of the poems together. Don Krieger is with us. I mean, he's in this issue. He read last week, and I think he knows exactly what I mean about because the love he shows organizing technically readings throughout the pandemic. On Sundays, the Cultivating Voices live series, and he assists with that, and then these readings, and he encourages to do this launch. And so thank you, Don, very deeply from the bottom of my heart for encouraging us to put this together, because it's been a lovely experience, and we'll do this again, and we'll depend on you again. Thank you.
Yeah, if I could say something about these readings, both of them, I felt that they both had a kind of stature that I haven't heard before in any reading, in person or otherwise. And I think it's because of the translations and the international voice that comes is so much richer, and there's a grandness to it, which is it's really different. I mean, the poetry is wonderful, and it very often is in any case, but there's something special about these 2 readings. I look forward to doing this again with Beltway if Sara and Indran wish to. Thank you all.
Thank you. Yes, we would love to. And our next issue we'll be preparing is for a January release, hopefully in alliance with the inauguration and all that. Esperanza en el nuevo año, es hope in the new year. L'espoir en la nouvelle année. So we'll see, but it's still probably going to be a crisis issue, though there will be some hope in there as well. Linda has a new book, Linda Morales Caballero, just so you know. We're all writing and producing and very grateful for that. Go ahead and tell us about that.
Well, this is a new book. Thank you. It's in Spanish. The name is El Rumor de las Cosas, or The Murmur of Things, which could also be the rumor of things, because the word means both things in Spanish, not in English. It's It's a beautiful book in terms, I'm not going to talk about my poetry being beautiful. I'm just saying that it's very well put together. I am very happy with New York Poetry Press. They let me choose the pictures inside. And I just hope I have an English version soon that I can share with everyone. So far, I'm working on the translation. I'm not a translator, but I'm becoming one, I guess, out of need, because it's very beautiful to be here and to be sharing with you all. And as somebody was saying, you know, this is also the reason why we enrich these meetings, these gatherings, because true, when the voice comes from another language, it sounds very unique, right? It adds up to the originality, I think. So thank you so much for putting this together.
Thank you so much. Nancy, would you like to just tell everyone about that reading, and then we will finish with some closing remarks from all of us. Go ahead.
I would, or Luther can. The three of us have organized a Blessed is the Light for Hanukkah reading with 18 poets, including Ed Hirsch and lots of local folks, Avia Kushner, and they're all going to read inspirational poems about this time of year. And many of the readers are also part of an anthology that's coming out in January called 101 Jewish Poems for the Third Millennium. And Matthew Silverman and I co-edited that, and it's coming out from Ashland Poetry Press and includes 101 poets writing. And that includes Ed Hirsch and David Lehman and Ilya Kaminsky and Jane Hirschfield, Ellen Bass, and 94 others, maybe not as well known as these. So we're very excited with these readings that are going to come out. And there's a reading of the anthology December 13th in Sarasota, but it's virtual. So if anyone would like details about that, please send me an email. Thanks, Indran, for the time.
Thank you. All right, so we'll finish now. I won't say with a prayer, but a prayer in the heart anyway, if not on the lips. And let's hope that we go into a good new year for all of us, a healthy new year. And thank you very much. Muchísimas gracias. Muito obrigado. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup à tous.
Merci beaucoup à tous. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Sarah,
Muchas
for
gracias.
your invaluable work.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Indran. Thank you, Sara.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Don, can you do the honors of closing